Aloha, you're watching Maui Improv's December Celebrity Showcase. This month, we're proud to feature the man who literally wrote the book on improv, Mr. David Razowsky, who flew in from Los Angeles yesterday to lead an intensive workshop for Maui Improv. I'm Kevin Curry, an instructor at Maui Improv, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to not only teaching individuals who would like to perform the art of improvisational theater, but also providing a venue to perform on stage in front of a live audience, sometimes accompanied by great masters, such as David Razowsky, for a truly live teaching experience. Maui Improv offers weekly drop-in classes and monthly performances at Pro Arts Theater in Kihei on the last Sunday of every month. Periodically, we're lucky enough to host visiting celebrities, especially during the winter when everyone wants to be here, where they can teach intensive 3-day workshops followed by a performance to include that actor. So even though Maui might be 2,500 miles away from Hollywood, we're fortunate to have many of our nation's best instructors from Los Angeles to New York, essentially all points in between. Now, to introduce our December 2023 Celebrity Showcase instructor, David Razowsky, who recently published the work, A Subversive's Guide to Improv, Moving Beyond Yes and. This book is much more a memoir of his early acting career as his life on stage with such greats as Stephen Colbert, Amy Sedaris, and Steve Carell. David carries the most accolades of any living improv instructor, having started with Second City in Chicago in the 1980s. He spent 25 years performing there before becoming the artistic director of Second City in Hollywood for another 10 years. So where do you go from there? He's been traveling the world and teaching a performing methodology of his very own. So welcome, Dave Razowsky. We're so excited to have you back on Maui. I don't know, would this be the third or fourth time that I'm attending? Is anybody counting?
That you're attending?
Well, that you've been to Maui.
I don't know. I don't know. It's as if something happened the past couple of years that kind of sucked out all the information and history I've ever had. I feel that I've been here 4 or 5 times, and I could be wrong.
Each time is a blessing. We're so happy that you're here.
Oh, I love it.
Just like any good improv scene, we just jump right into the middle of our conversation, right?
Right.
And so maybe you can tell me where you've been traveling to teach improv in the world.
Okay, so I traveled from, let's see, Auckland, New Zealand, which has an A and a Z in it, Auckland, Boston, Chicago, Seattle, Miami. I will be going to Santa Fe. I regularly go to, where's another place that I go to? London, Berlin, Würzburg, Copenhagen, Amsterdam.
Berlin must be interesting, teaching people that are basically coming from another language.
Well, the biggest problem that I had, because the people in Germany are really good with their English, it's the people in Italy who, for some reason, they learn English when they first when they're in school, but they aren't really learning conversational English, which is a real bummer because of all the places I've ever been to. I connect most to the Italians because they're so passionate, they're so emotional, and they're so connected. And after a while, I just went, because I taught at the taught an improv fest in Rome, and then I went to Ravenna, Bologna, and Milano.
Oh, Milano, mi piace Milano molto.
I love it so much. I love it a lot. And after a while, I just went, you know what? Because they all had translators for me, and after a while, I went, I don't need the translator. I'll figure out what you're doing there, and it was great. They're just so passionate.
I love that.
Traveling. I do love traveling.
And speaking of I guess the the local base.
Right.
My thought is like, what makes Maui a little bit different than, let's say, Italians or people from New York in terms of teaching here? Are we different? Are we weird? Yes, of that descent.
Of that
Sometimes we call them local people because it's different than the mainland definition.
Got it.
That are, they talk Larat, and that's, they're from, what would you call, immigrant workers that have grown up here on the island.
Right. So the people that I'm working with are mostly people that have come from other places because they love the spiritual vibe of Maui.
Yes.
And because they like the spiritual vibe of Maui, it's a different approach that I have than when I'm going to, say, New York City, which is moving here. People are like...
We're a little slower then.
I would say not slower in terms of tempo, but slower in terms of reaction, maybe. Mm-hmm. And what I really, really love is, and this is not meant as anything other than a fact, it's an older group.
Yes.
And when it's an older group, you don't have a lot of scenes about dating. You don't have a lot of scenes about going to college. You have a lot of scenes about, existential experiences, which is really kind of cool. The existential experiences that come with an older person. And I love it. And that's that kind of a demographic, which is probably between 35 and 75, is that's really fair. Cool little chunk of people, because there's a confidence that they have. They know who they are as human beings, and so when you're improvising, they know that it's all a sense of play and playing, and they don't want to be themselves. And I get it.
Yeah, that's really a great insight. I'm also curious about this. A lot of people watching this may not have ever really taken an improv class, or the only experience they know about improv is Drew Carey and Whose Line Is It Anyway, mm-hmm. and that's basically features short form improv, a style that is more about games and, going for the immediate joke. But there's more than just that. And could you tell us the difference between, let's say, what you'll be teaching this upcoming workshop, and short form?
The difference between, certainly a main difference is when you're doing short form or games like that you see on Whose Line Is It Anyway, or you go to an improv place and they have an improv theater, and they'll have these called games. We're playing a game for you right now. The product is usually the laugh. You want to get a laugh from the audience. And that's what you want, and that's what you're focusing in on. Fast, funny, and get out, no one gets hurt. In what we're doing, it's slower. The laughs come because of not a joke or anything clever, but because people are being honest when people are usually trying to hold out on being honest. So it's about the emotional connection that people have. What we're doing is mostly what we will be doing, what I have been doing is it looks more theatrical because it's slower, the tempo's slower, the pace is slower, more people doing things that are just human and thinking, and it's really quite wonderful because people aren't working, they're just being. People aren't working to get a laugh, they're just being human beings, and it's just a wonderful thing to watch because you don't worry. I don't worry as a director, as a teacher, as an audience member. I'm not worrying like, oh my God, they're failing, because you can't fail if you're being honest. And that's the most beautiful thing about improvisation.
Yeah, it's really something I'm still working on. I'm still out there thinking they're not laughing.
Right.
But then you wait and you proceed with the honesty, and suddenly something happens.
Yeah, and you hit two things there. One thing being a quote in my book is
which is this.
It's my beautiful book.
A Subversive Guides to Improvisation.
And in this book, there's a couple things that are said. One being, feel the feelings you're feeling the moment you feel those feelings. And the cool thing about that is, all the work that we're doing is about the emotional connection that you have with people. Feel those feelings. Mm-hmm. Hold on to those feelings. And another one that I have is, you will know what you need to know when you need to know what you need to know. And when it comes to improvisation, people panic and they want to bring in all these little other elements. It's like, no, you're fine. Just be patient, and the scene will come to you. The scene's going to come to you. And that's always been true. If you panic, you're throwing something in there that isn't part of the flow, and it's not going to help you. Panic has never helped you. And a lot of people don't do improvisation because they say things like, I'm sure you've heard this, I don't want to do improv because I'm not funny. It's like, you're a human being. You are funny. You don't have to worry about it. It's like, yeah, but I'm not clever. It's like, I don't want you to be clever. You don't have to be clever. You just have to be human and be with me. I'm here with you. It's a very Buddhist approach. It's like, just take the moment in, be in the moment, and sit in it.
I really want to have a t-shirt that says panic has never helped me.
Nope.
That is just amazing. That is just really well. From your book, there's a listing of all the accolades and all the amazing things you've done at Second City. And I know that you were at Second City Northwest. And I was reading about such performances of 1990, Turn Your Head in Kafta, It'll Only Hurt for a Mammoth, which included such greats as Steve Carell and Amy Sedaris. And the shows included musical directors, and they're theme-based. So I'm really curious about that experience at Second City and what Maui Improv is doing. I just got back from Dallas. I saw a show called 4-Day Weekend, where it was very integrated with music and graphics and costumes. And what is your take on that?
It's really interesting. Who did that show? Do you remember the theater company that did it?
I think it's the name of their show. It's called 4-Day Weekend. They have a Dallas and a DFW.
Oh, I see. So, did you say Dallas? You were in Dallas?
I was in Dallas and Fort Worth.
Got it,
and they have two troops.
Oh, Dallas, I heard Denver.
Name.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I heard. Oh, okay. So what you saw there was closer to. So it was sketch, right? It was all written.
No, it was improv.
It was all improvised.
In costume, with graphics coming up, and just really, it was cutting edge.
Love it. That really sounds a lot like what I did in 2000 at a theater called Boom Chicago in Amsterdam, which was improvised. It was in a huge, beautiful hall. They're still going on in Amsterdam. So it was games, improv games, short games. It was sketch. It was improv, and it was graphics, and they had a mini TV studio on stage where they could just put together something really quickly.
Wow.
There are different levels of improvisation that you're doing. Second City is not an improv theater. It's a sketch theater. And what Maui Improv is doing is improv. The difference between sketch and improv is the improv that you do at Second City was created through, the sketch that you see at Second City was created through improvisation. So
I see. So they were doing some experimental work, and they happened upon a situation or a scene that they thought this merits further development.
Well, everything merits further development because the point of what you're doing at Second City is to create 2 acts of sketch comedy that you can repeat every single night for maybe 3 or 4 months. And it looks theatrical and is theatrical. So my training was originally my first foray into improvisation was in 1983 when I was doing improv in prisons across the United States.
Wow. And
the improv in prisons was mask work, non-comedic, rehabilitational, therapeutic improv in maximum security, minimum security, men's joints, women's joints, teens. It was all throughout that. And so I became very physical in the work that I'm doing. And that physicality played into playing stronger characters. So then I went to Chicago and did something called The Herald, which was long-form improvisation. A long-form improvisation, as opposed to short-form. Short-form is a game thing where it's like, we're going to do this quick game, it's going to quick laugh. A long-form is more of an improvised play. It's basically a fractured improvised play. And I just happened to just be there when this was blooming. And nobody knew what that was. So nowadays, everybody who's doing improvisation knows what the Herald is. Again, it's an improvised play. And then when I left there, I auditioned for the training center in Chicago, this Second City Training Center. And I got in and learned how to do sketch comedy. And again, sketch comedy is you have a show that you're going to do. You're going to come up with some ideas, scenarios. You're going to improvise those scenarios in front of a director or teacher. That director or teacher goes, okay, I like that first bit. I didn't like that second bit. I want you to change the second bit in that, and let's see it again. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, until you have it in your body by rote, and then somebody transcribes it into a scene, and it goes into a show.
Interesting. So is it still very loose when you're on the main stage?
It's
or
not
it's
loose.
cut and dry?
It's a resident company, because they call at Second City. When I was at Second City, it was Second City Northwest, which is a satellite. Then you go downtown, and there are two theaters at that time. There was ETC, which is a smaller theater, and Main Stage, which is the big theater. That's what you want. You want to be on Main Stage.
Yeah.
And so, in all of those, it's all of those you get into your system how to create that show. And as you go from the touring company, the Second City, to the smaller theaters, to the big theaters, it becomes more of I know how to do this. I can do this. I can't wait to do another show. I can't wait to write another show. I have this idea, and I know how to create it and craft it and work with somebody on it. And that's the most beautiful, wonderful thing.
What a great... thank you for educating me on that.
Oh, for sure.
So it's a building block. Improv has become a building block to create sketch so that you can produce new ideas and shows.
Okay, let me just say, there's a guy named Bernie Solins, and Bernie Solins was one of the originators of one of the founders of Second City, and he had an actor named Del Close, and Del Close was an actor there, and Del Close eventually really understood how to put these sketches together, and then eventually became a director. And then Del went off on his own and created this thing called the Herald, which I was talking about earlier.
Yes.
And Del and Bernie used to have this rivalry. It's a very friendly rivalry, where Bernie would say, improvisation is not an end to itself. It's a way to get to write sketch. And Del went, it's an evening's worth of entertainment. And that is where those two things...
It's a dividing line.
It divided then, and then further down the road, what Del did divided more and divided more and divided more. And now you've got, whereas in 1982, there were 2 improv theaters in the entire world. Now there's one practically in every university.
Next to every Starbucks.
Right, and that's true. And it's like next to every Starbucks, but also in grammar schools and high schools, colleges. It's like improvisation is everywhere, and I've been part of it. And this book, half of this book is about the...
I love this book.
Half of this.
I love the chair, by the way, which is symbolic of improv. Basically.
Well, it's symbolic of improv. It's also symbolic of a subversive way of doing it, because it's upside down. It's also dark. But one of the things about the book, if I may, is literally half this book, let's say up to, oh my gosh, this much of this book is all memoir. Growing up in Chicago, doing theater, and I think that what people are loving about this is people are looking, going, that's my story. That's what I've always wanted to do. And I think this is the first book that has that path, the memoir of somebody. And then the second half is my improv philosophy and stuff like that.
I loved reading your book. I got it on Kindle, but I was really touched by your frankness and honesty when you were discussing the fact that you come from a Jewish background, and there you step in Chicago with all the Irish boys, and how to make it in that culture, and how to feel like I can do this as well. I can contribute. Just being who I am is enough.
Absolutely.
To be able to step on stage and hold my own place and have the right to breathe on stage.
Absolutely. And I think that it's really important that people, especially now, where people want to see themselves represented on stage. And so you have LGBTQ people at Second City, or at least out and doing scenes and connecting in that way. You have different BIPOC people that are there. And it is so different, because the white faces of all the casts that I have been in made me go, how did it feel for a person of color to come and see that show? And to go, yeah, it's funny, but I want to do that, and I don't think I'll ever be able to do that, because obviously they don't hire people of color. And then that all changed, but way late. It's
true, but You know, I'm grateful that it's here. I'm grateful. And speaking of being on stage, I want to roll some footage of you way back. I guess it's 11 years ago, in the San Francisco Improv Festival, where you masterfully endow your partner with a lot of what we call an improv gifts.
Right.
Just in your opening statement, and I think I want to talk about that. But let's watch it together, and just give her name and what she's done in a relationship, and
you say her character. Give her character the name and what she's done in her relationship.
Yes, her character.
Yeah.
And it all takes place in 2.5 minutes. So let's watch that now.
Stop. No, then you tell me. Because your mother's upstairs crying right now. I just want you to know she is crying, weeping, copious, real tears this time. Real tears.
I didn't know it was on video.
You didn't know, Janice? There was a video camera, there was a director, there was a boom mic. Janice, please, I don't even with the sound off, I don't even want it to be in a room with me.
The man approached me and said he wanted to take my pictures for his portfolio, and I thought that was a good word, portfolio, right?
What man, Janice? What man? Hold on a minute. Susan, I am talking to her. Well, if you can stop crying, then you can come down here and talk to her.
It's not that big of a deal.
It is a big deal, Janice. It's a very big deal.
A lot of people I know have YouTube videos.
Not that, Janice, not that. Susan, if you want to chime in, then you come down here and chime in.
Dad.
What?
It's just a tankini.
How could that be a word? How could that be a word? How is that a word? Where is that a word? No, Susan. No, it's not okay. It's not okay, Susan. And when did you and your mother get so goddamn close to each other? When did I turn out to be the bad guy, Janice? When did I turn out to be...
Maybe if you stop spending so much time with those mice in that laboratory and a little bit of time at home.
Don't! The mice in the laboratory pay for the tankini. Don't you know? We had nothing until there were mice and a laboratory and me and a job and a parking space. You shut up with that! Not here! No, you sit back down. Janice, you sit down.
Why can't you just get divorced like Janice's parents? She has 2 homes, she gets 2 holidays. She has Christmas and Hanukkah. Then I could just be with you on your 1 day off. And we could start pretending that you're actually a father who's present. If I have to be semi-naked on YouTube for you to notice me, well then so be it.
It's your turn.
Oh, that was great. So, tell me, wow, you built that world in just 2.5 minutes. It seemed complete. You escalated and kept talking about, what she had done, and she denies that she's doing a video. It's like, but you had a boom operator.
Right.
Maybe you can give us some tips on how, because you only really have a few minutes on stage. How did you make that develop so quick?
Well, first off, you don't think about how much time you have on stage. What we have 40 minutes to do that at the San Francisco Improv Festival. They gave us 40 minutes to do that show, and whatever that show is, they don't say you have to have 10. They don't say you have to have 10 4-minute scenes. It's like it takes the time that it takes. The work that I've been doing, again, I love coming back to the book because it's all in that book. Is about most improvisation. You ask for a suggestion, and I never ask for a suggestion. Now, Rachel Hamilton, who is she is great in this scene. I just love her so much, and she's in most of the videos that I have online, showing examples of great improvisation. So what Rachel and I will do is we'll just take our chairs, we'll put the chairs down wherever that feels like we are. That's where we are. and she is open toward anything that she thinks that the scene is, and I am open toward anything that she thinks the scene is. If she thinks the scene is at the next place, then I agree with her. If I think the scene is at one place, then she agrees with me. So in this scene, it's just the emotional connection that I have with Rachel standing the way that she's standing. And if people can look at this, watch that video again, just notice that we didn't take a suggestion. We moved the chairs, we put the chairs down, and what Rachel looks like in that first scene, to me, that's who she is.
So it was built off her physicality.
It was built off her physicality, absolutely. It's built off her shape, and it was built off of her shape and built off of my shape. And when we put the dynamics of her shape together with my shape, it's like that's our scene. And we don't have to explain anything. So we get into the middle of it. Now, when you take suggestions for it, most improv scenes take suggestions.
Yeah.
And most people who are taking suggestions for an improv scene feel that they have to explain to the audience where they are, who they are, and what they're doing. But
Oh, it's true. That creates an obligation.
exactly. And it takes time. And if I tell you who you are, where you are, and what you're doing, then you've got to figure out what I mean by that. But if we start in the middle with an accusation or an assumption or a gift, we're in the middle of that scene, and we don't have to explain it. And if I'm sitting in the audience, I don't want to be treated like I'm 3 years old or 4 years old, where somebody goes, "We're in the castle, and I'm a princess, and you're the prince, and we're having dinner." Like, I'm an adult. Let me figure it out as we're going on. And that's what we do.
No, that's very good. And my next thought is, you were talking about how Rachel accepts whatever you're doing, and the subtitle of the book is moving beyond yes and.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people now that have been exposed to improv, at a coffee table, you'll talk to somebody, oh yeah, that means yes and. I mean, they know that's one of the first, I'm going to say, rules of improv.
Right.
And then now you've said we're going to move beyond yes and. Tell me why.
Well, first off, okay. There are improv rules that have started in improvisation. Improvisation, you have to remember, improvisation is a real young art form. It probably began in the mid 1950s. And okay, so let's say it came about in the late 1940s. There was a woman named Viola Spolin, and Viola Spolin worked at a place called Jane Addams Hull House, and she was working with immigrant children trying to work out how they can connect to each other, play with each other. And so she came up with these improv games. And her son was named Paul Sills, and Paul Sills became one of the originators of the Second City, which took Viola's games and then taught them to adults how to play them.
Oh, did not know that.
Yeah, so Viola is the mother of all improvisation. There was a time, and this is in a book that I read called Improv Nation, which by Sam Wasson, The History of Improvisation, which is just a great book. And in the book he says, Viola Spolin gets up in front of an audience in 1947, and asks for a suggestion of a location. And he said, that was the first time anybody ever addressed the audience asking for a suggestion of where the scene takes place. That was the beginning. And when you have to do, and so we've evolved from there. I've evolved from taking suggestions. Yes, and the rules are you always have to say yes to something. You can't deny. You can't ask questions. You can't talk about people who aren't there. You can't have negotiation scenes. So all of these rules have created people who are performing on stage not looking like human beings, because what book doesn't have questions in it? What place can you not talk about someone who's not there? Where can't you say no? So this book is about removing all those rules and showing you how you can look like a human being on stage and improvise your scene.
Providing some logic to, there's more than just that one premise. Well, there's a lot of situations.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if I say to you, and we're doing a scene, and I say to you, your character, if I say, Carl, pass the salt. Do I want you to pass the salt? You're taught so let's say that this is the salt.
Yes.
Okay. If I say to you, Carl, pass the salt, and you're taught to do yes and, what are you going to do?
Of course, I'll pass you the salt.
Great. And now we don't have a scene because there's no dynamic. Now, I'm teaching to say this. Ask me to pass the salt.
Could you pass the salt?
No.
But I really need some salt.
It's not that you need salt. You want salt, and I'm not passing the salt to you. I'm not going to give you the salt.
But I have low blood pressure, and if I don't have
The
salt,
doctor said you don't have low blood pressure. It's all in your mind, and there's nothing wrong with you. You just love salt, and I'm not going to pass the salt to you.
you are very difficult.
Now, look what you just did. What you just did was you made it where it started out to be about the salt, and then you said, I'm very difficult. And that is exactly where we need to be. Because the scene starts out to be about the thing, the salt, and as the scene goes on, if we're emotional, it becomes about the two of us.
I cheated and read his book. That's what I did.
You should cut that part out, because you'll look like a genius. But you know what I mean?
Yes, that's brilliant.
And for us, but what I love that you did there, Kevin, was like you said that you read that book and you cheated. But what you really did was you read that book and it helped us do that scene.
Yes.
Because
I learned
the moment, yeah, and the moment that you go pass the salt and you pass the salt, so you had to say no to me. I had to say no to you in order to make that scene work. Did I say no to you, or did I say no to your character?
To my character, absolutely. Because that's what helped build the scene.
Absolutely. And you and I are doing this thing, which is called attachment theory. Now, attachment theory says that when you see two people on stage, it's not two people. When you see two people on stage, it's one unit. The unit is you and I going, I'm going to ask you for the salt. Don't pass the salt. And I'm going to ask you for the salt. Don't pass the salt. Okay, I won't pass the salt. And this is an agreement that we have. So I'm denying the character. I'm not denying my partner.
Brilliant.
A way to deny the partner is this. Let's see. What is it? Ask me to pass. Ask me, do I want the salt?
Do you want the salt?
That's not salt. That's denying the actor.
I just was very confused.
Right, you know what I mean? That was denying the actor, and that makes you very confused.
Yes, it did.
If you know that the two of us are here to create, you're my collaborator. You're my collaborator, and I'm your collaborator.
Yeah, it's one unit. That's brilliant.
Right, it's
one unit. In terms of one unit.
And what that means you have to do is not have a knee-jerk reaction to offers that are being made in a scene. So if you say, pass the salt.
Pass the salt.
My knee-jerk reaction, because I'm a nice person, is to pass the salt.
Yes.
But in order for us to have a strong scene, it has to process with me. Like, what do you want me to do? What does my collaborator want me to do? Right?
You have to think above the dialogue.
You have to think
that's
above but that's what creates great improv. Because, Kevin, that's what creates great theater. Is a great actor isn't going to have a knee-jerk reaction, and all improv is acting. All of it is acting. And so right now, improvisers are, I mentioned this in the book, improvisers are, when I was growing up, I was taught improvisation by actors, and by theater directors, and by playwrights, because there were no such thing as an improv teacher. There was no such thing as an improv teacher. As improv has evolved, there are now improv teachers who have never studied theater. And so they don't know the gravitas. And so there's a shallowness that I see in improvisation, because the teachers aren't teaching anything that has any depth to it.
Well, you touch on a very good topic, and that is, before COVID, of course, you could go to Los Angeles and there was Upright Citizens Brigade, like 3 locations, and they were like churning out these, would-be actors are all taking level 1, 2, 3, 4.
Would-be improvisers.
Yes, thank you.
Would-be improvisers.
Well, no, I'd say that they're somebody who came to Southern California, to Hollywood, to become actors, and I think they believe that improv is sort of like an ancillary to the acting school.
Are you saying that these schools are churning out actors, or are they churning out improvisers?
I'm asking. Are they turning out actors?
No, they're turning out improvisers.
Okay. So there's a big difference between those two camps?
Well, for me, in the book, there's in the book I talk about, what's the difference between an actor and an improviser. And there's a long list of that in one chapter that talks about an improviser doesn't know an improviser, how can I say this? An improviser goes for the joke. An actor goes for that process of connection. the dynamic of it. It's not about the joke. An improviser doesn't know acting basics like blocking, and I don't mean blocking like blocking an improv scene. I mean, where is your stage picture? What are you doing? They're not learning that. And because they're not learning that, you have two talking heads on stage that are just talking. Now, we're talking about that scene right there, right?
Yeah.
What did you have there? Were we standing talking?
No. Stage left, you were sitting in chairs, but very effective use of you walking across,
Absolutely.
looking up to the second story to speak to your wife about the dog.
Right. And so there was a lot of movement, and there was a lot of gesturing, and Rachel stayed in one place. Why did Rachel stay in one place? Because I'm the one who's moving. If Rachel was moving too and I was moving, then that scene would be.
She was being a pouty little girl.
But that's what her character's.
Yes.
I'm talking about the skill set of the actor. Rachel stayed still because Rachel has acting chops, and Rachel knows that if she moves too much, it'll take away from me being the nervous person.
So basically, what I'm hearing from you though is where long form improv is going. It's more of an actor's game. You're using improv skills, but the blocking, the commitment to where is this scene going and being reality, those are all in the acting camp.
Right. Because think about a play that you saw. Think about a play that you really love to see. Does the play start out with saying, hey, here we are at the bakery and we're buying a wedding cake? No, it starts in the middle. And then as the scene goes on, you figure out more and more of what's going on. And think about it, in a game that you're doing, you don't have the time to do that. You've got to be funny. So you can't just go, we're just going to be these two people living in here.
It's clever, quick-witted,
absolutely,
and it's going for the button, going for the left.
Going for the button, going for the left. Now, for people who are interested in improvisation, or who look at it and go, I really love that, but I'm not that funny, we have just cut off thousands and thousands of people who want improvisation, but they think because it's being led as a humorous thing, they say they're not that funny, and so they don't invest the time or the energy into going there, and that's a real drag. That's a shame. And that's what this book is about. Go in there, recognize that all that you have to do is be human. Just be human. And as the teacher, director, mentor, therapist, me being the coach in a way, I don't like that word coach, but me being there going, you're going to be okay. Trust me. Hold on to your point of view. Don't bring a joke in there. Don't talk about the past. Don't talk about the future. Be where it is that you are. And a major part of that is the question that I ask a lot at the beginning of a class is, do you want to be the scene, or do you want to tell the story, or do you want to be the story? Do you want to tell the story, or do you want to be the story? Which one?
I would rather be the story.
Absolutely. So
certainly.
If you're telling the story, then you're going, once upon a time, there was a princess who lived in a turret, and she was waiting for her Prince Charming to come, and she was flustered. It's like, oh my God. As opposed to, where is he? I have waited nigh these many hours for him. Why can I not find a good princess in this town? What is it? I may turn into a lesbian if it means that I can have love. And it's like, at that moment, it's funny because it's true. And
the lesbian, loveless princess.
Right, exactly.
But acting that out instead of using narrative.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So the way that I put it is, you're not going to know the plot of that until it's over. And then once it's over, you go, oh, that happened, and then that happened, and that happened, and that happened. If you and I are in this scene together, and you think, oh, the plot of this is, there's a princess in a castle locked there. Your concept of what that is, and my concept of what that is, are two different things, and we don't have attachment there. Right? What we have here is going, go with me on this one, Dave. I got this. It's like, well, what about, if you want me to do exactly what you want me to, if you want me to do exactly what you want me to do, there's a tool that a lot of actors use, and they've used it forever. And it's called, what's it in English? It's called a script.
Oh, yes, that thing. Yeah.
And we don't do a script. So if you want to do a doctor's office scene, write it out. Because I've already seen that doctor's office scene. I guarantee you. If I say to most people, like, who should be in a doctor's office scene? Who should be in a doctor's office scene?
Somebody, doctor looking.
No, not really.
No?
No. Anybody.
Oh.
Anybody.
Oh, a doctor's office? Yeah, it could be anyone.
It could be anyone, right? A doctor's office scene, not a doctor's scene. A doctor's
Yes.
office scene.
Yes.
Now, if it's doctor and patient, how does it usually start?
Well, doctor, I think I have this problem.
Great,
Right.
do that, and then describe what you're.
Oh, my knee, it really hurts over here. And I think,
Look, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD in music.
oh,
There's the scene that we don't see.
yeah. Well, I think that's interesting because where we're at today is we've had so much media thrown at us. It is so polished. It is so perfect. There's $1 million budgets creating this beautiful, incredible CGI created fantasy
Right.
that we can go and see on giant screens with surround sound. And I think we're overloaded with all of that media. And I think people really enjoy this sort of, I'm going to call it almost vaudevillian style entertainment that's live and real.
Right. People love that. And also, you know, in vaudeville, it was really interesting about vaudeville was everything that you saw in vaudeville, it was dangerous because you didn't know what they were going to be doing, but it was really funny. And yet it was also, anybody who wants to know anything about this, read Buster Keaton's biography to see how much he rehearsed those falls, how much he was together in silent movies, how much he was together with the crew and the cast in order to make something interesting. But it was all done live.
Yeah. Which is, boy, I so appreciate,
Right.
working in improv now and live theater is, it's a very different dynamic. It's a very, the unpredictability about it is what makes it so unique. I think that's
Absolutely.
what people are waiting for. They're waiting for the little mistakes. They're waiting for the authenticity for people to show
I totally agree.
their vulnerable side.
Right. Perfect is boring. Perfect is absolutely boring. There's a show called Top Chef. Have you heard of Top Chef?
Oh, of course.
I love it. We watch it. My fiance and I watch it a lot. And maybe when this comes out, she'll be my wife if it comes out. But Laura and I watch it a lot. And this last season, the guy who won, everything he did was perfect. And then when he won, it was like, well, that's boring. And perfect is boring. You want people to foul up. You want people to make mistakes. You want people to say the wrong thing because you then want to see how are they going to make that work. And what I say is in my improv is like, be the problem. Don't solve the problem. Be the problem.
Be the problem.
Be the problem.
Oh, that's another code to live by. That's great.
Right. Be the problem you want to see in others. It's Mahatma Gandhi.
Well, David Razowsky, I want to really thank you for not only being who you are and having ventured through 35 years of improvisational theater as it's developed, but taking it on the road across the country to teach Americans and internationally, because my personal experience with improv has been, it calms me down.
Right.
It keeps me present.
Right.
I'm able to listen to people. I'm able to respond honestly. We talk about panic. I panic less because I know that in any given situation, I can handle it.
Right.
And it's a wonderful thing that you're teaching other people.
love it.
I can't recommend that people read this book and the history that Dave Razowsky has inside. It's a very exciting piece. And then also, just in the back, there's a lot of very practical pieces of what to do in a nightmare scene. If you're there with that actor, you're like, oh my God, help me. How do I get out of this one?
Right.
There's practical answers on what to do, on how to escape from that one. So I really love it.
It's really great.
Thank you very much for being here. And I am looking forward so much to our workshop and our performance this week.
I really am too. I love coming to Maui.
Great. Aloha.
Aloha.